I'm in Nashville today in this beautiful backyard garden with Sarah Ruzick. Sarah is the founder and the creative genius behind Tennessee Kitchen Gardens. So Sarah, what exactly is a kitchen garden and who should have one?
Yeah, so a kitchen garden is actually a really old term. Like potager in French means kitchen garden.
Okay.
And so just like the kitchen is a really important part of the house, the kitchen garden is a really important part of the backyard. It basically informs your cooking, and it's an important part of coming out to the backyard and enjoying your space.
Well, I love this garden. Obviously, it's beautiful and it looks very intentional. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us about the design of this particular garden?
Yeah, we think about this one as an outdoor room. So the raised beds are creating our walls, the arches are drawing the eye up and creating a ceiling, and then we have a centerpiece, the fountain in the middle, and then we have this base. We have our floor creating with both gravel and with this stone edging.
It's beautiful. Great work on this. Let's take a look at some of the things you have growing here. This looks like a sugar snap pea, am I right? Mm-hmm. Tell me about it.
Yeah. Well, so it's important to acknowledge that these arches are not only gorgeous, but they're also functional. And so this is our cool season climber. Mm-hmm. Later on, we'll replace these with tomatoes, but for now, we have these beautiful sugar snap peas, which are going to produce a nice crispy crop, which probably won't ever make it into the kitchen.
And any kind of pea or bean also contributes to the health of the soil, right?
Of course, yep. So we're fixing nitrogen in the soil so that when the tomatoes come later, they're going to have a little bit extra energy to go off of.
So you design gardens for a living, and I know you do a lot of raised beds. That's the thing that you do. Mm-hmm. Why raised beds?
They're just so much easier. We can control the soil in the raised beds in a way that we can't in just the clay soil of Middle Tennessee. So our raised beds are 2 feet high, and they're filled completely with a mixture of screen topsoil and worm castings and mushroom compost, and we're constantly adding a little bit more. Even when we plant, we might add a little bit of fertilizer to the planting hole just to make sure that plants are getting their very best start.
That's great. If I were a home gardener, I would look at this and it feels easy to do. It's the right height, I can get to it without having to bend down. It looks like it's easy to control the weeds. What are some of the other benefits for a typical family? They're busy, they have kids in school, or they have jobs, they vacation. It seems like it's easy to take care of, am I right?
Yeah, I think that whereas every single year, if you had a tilled garden, you have to go out and you have to re-till and you have to re-weed, and then you're pretty much weeding every week. But with a raised bed garden, you have the structure. And so you can just go out and plant. Even if you don't have a chance to add more soil, you can do that later. And so the raised beds and the verticals, the arches and the obelisks, they create the structure so that you can get out and you can get your crops in each and every season.
Yeah. So looking around this garden, it is way smaller than my grandparents' garden.
Right.
It was, like you said, rototilled, huge roads, weeds everywhere, but they grew a lot of food in that. How much food can you grow in a space that's as small as this is?
You'd be shocked how much food we could get in here. Because the soil is so well taken care of, we can intensively plant this. Some of the patterns that we have herbs on the edges, we have flowers on the edges. On the inside, we have intensively planted all of our lettuces, our kales, our broccolis, our cabbages. And so we're able to pack in lots of plants. And
I see you've intentionally included some pollinator crops as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, trying to bring in the good bugs.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. So Sarah, when we think about raised beds, often we think about really small crops like lettuce, or we think about ornamentals or herbs. In this particular garden, I see that you have some alliums and some pretty large kale. Talk to us about those particular crops in a raised bed situation, and maybe some other crops that would be unusual to see in a raised bed.
Well, generally we're trying to create kind of a forest within the raised bed. We're trying to diversify so that, for instance, if we have a cabbage moth come and take out this Russian red kale, we've got plenty of other plants that cabbage moth is not going to get into. Sometimes I think about like that old Southern living technique of the spiller, the thriller, and the filler. And so right here we have leeks to create our thriller, to get some height, but also they smell, so they're gonna repel some of the pests. And then we have our filler of our lettuce, and of course that's just a loved crop, and it's not gonna be that small for long. And then we have our spillers, our herbs. We have chamomile here, alyssum, we have these pansies. That sage over there is gonna start to tumble over the edge because it's a beer garden variety. Yeah, we're trying to create beautiful stuff and also fill in the beds as tightly as we can.
And how do you manage transition? So when this lettuce is harvested and it starts to get warmer than it is now, this is going to bolt. How does the gardener know when and how to switch out those plantings?
Well, that's the great thing about raised beds. When you're out here, you're not necessarily getting distracted with weeds. You're just out here to harvest. And so if you see the perfect size lettuce and you need it in your dinner that night, come out and get it. And so we know that lettuce is going to start to bolt as it heats up. And so we're going to be transitioning this garden out pretty quickly for peppers and tomatoes and our eggplants and all of our warm season crops. So the kitchen is right there and it's time to eat this stuff.
Yeah, so it sounds like there's a continual rotation of plantings that are getting harvested into the kitchen and then new things that are coming in depending on the season and the frost dates and those kind of things, right?
Right.
Great. Sarah, this garden is very intentional, very beautiful, and it looks like you put a lot of thought into it. If I'm a home gardener and I want to design something like this, what are some of the basics that I could take from this garden and apply in my own backyard?
Yeah, well, start with what you want. So first of all, think about if you're going to be out in your garden, what kind of activities might you be doing? This particular garden has a table to have dinner. We have a fire pit in the back. But we've also built gardens with swing sets and sandboxes because we need to get the kids busy while you're out here, you know, plundering around your garden and kind of playing around. Yeah. So that's probably the most important part, is to think about what do you want to be doing. And then from there, consider what kind of structure do you want. This garden is very formal, so we have the repeated geometric pattern of the L's. But you could also just have rectangles or squares and keep it simple. This is beautiful Tennessee lumber. It comes from Gordonsville. It's our eastern redwood that we see all over the sides of the road. And so this is 2 inches thick, and so I would recommend not going any less than that. You want a beefy piece of wood to keep your garden long lasting and easy to take care of for a long time.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. And I love that idea about having sandbox in the garden and having toys and making this garden, if you are a family and you want your children to participate, this seems like a really great format for kids. Can't run through this easily. Certainly they could climb on it and interact with it. But have you seen any of your gardens where children are helping to take care of them?
Oh yeah, we have a bunch of gardens that have tiny shovels and tiny rakes. We have a lot of gardens that have miniature excavators and dump truck little cars, and we have a lot of gardens with like decorative rocks. It's just really fun to see how kids can make a garden their own. And then there's a lot of plants that are very kid friendly. You probably know that, you know, sugar snap peas are very easy for little fingers to put in the ground, and then of course to come out and eat. Radishes can be planted and they come up so fast, and beans, squash and the whole pumpkin family can be easily planted, and you'll see a seedling pop up within 4 days, so in the heat. Yeah.
You're making the case for not using pesticides in the garden so that kids can pick and eat as they will, right?
For sure. Yeah,
that's great. Sarah, I see that you have an irrigation system in this garden. Tell us a little bit more about what's the best way to irrigate a raised bed.
Yeah, so we irrigate with drip line because we want to water the soil and the roots and not the leaves. Of course, the rain is going to water the leaves, but that's also when we get more bacteria, more viruses, more fungus. And so we want to use drip line to water, and then we do have it set up on a timer so that in our busy lives we don't forget to water, and we can leave town for several days and the garden's going to be just fine.
Yeah, that's really smart. And for a garden that sometimes they can tend to dry out a little bit more in the summer, what happens over time as these gardens mature? Do you find that happens less, and do you find that weed control happens less as the garden matures?
Well, not really. That's a good question, though. So when we first put the soil in, it is really loose. And so you'll notice that the water can just go straight down to the bottom, and you'll be standing in your irrigation.
Right.
And so that is true. In the first 6 months or so of your garden, you might have to water a little bit more because that soil has not compacted yet. But it doesn't take long. And once that soil starts to compact and the roots start to create some ecosystem down below, then we know that the water is going to be catching, and the soil is going to become better and better over time. It really kind of takes care of itself. Yeah, that's great to know. Love the design. I love the aesthetic behind it, but I also love all the practical tips that you've given us today. Thanks for spending the day with me. Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you were here.
For inspiring garden tours, growing tips, and garden projects, visit our website at volunteergardener.org or on YouTube at the Volunteer Gardener channel, and like us on Facebook.